It's time to be frank about the overlooked consequences of Brexit, its effect on the United Kingdom's services and trade sectors. So initially, the services sector looked as if it was doing relatively well, but services account for close to 80% of GDP, and they're the engine of our economy, ranging from finance and law to the creative industries, education, logistics, and IT. And when we speak about Britain's global economic role, we're fundamentally talking about its services. Brexit was sold to the public as a means of freeing Britain from EU regulation, opening up global trade and reclaiming sovereignty. Yet in doing so, the UK government made a strategic choice to prioritise ending free movement of people over maintaining frictionless access to the EU's single market for services. This choice imposed new trade barriers on the very sectors where Britain was strongest and most competitive. It's worth underlying just how vital these services are. They account for nearly 45% of all UK exports by value, exceeding goods exports by almost 40% in 2024. Services support other industries, manufacturing, logistics, finance, and education. And a single top university can generate more export revenue than the entire fishing industry. In short, services are the true foundation of Britain's global economic position. And Brexit supporters claim that leaving the EU would unleash a global Britain free to trade with the world. They pointed to robust UK service exports post-2021, even suggesting this was proof Brexit had strengthened the sector. Policy Exchange, for example, trumpeted that UK services export growth was the strongest in the G7, but these headlines missed the deeper reality. And research from the London School of Economics reveals that the apparent strength of service exports was misleading. LSE economists compared sectors exposed to the new Brexit barriers with those that were not, and they found sectors with minimal new barriers, such as management consulting, performed well, but others, notably finance and transport, suffered badly precisely because of the significant new trade frictions. And in the most affected sectors, exports to the EU fell by 90%. On average, there was a 16% decline in EU-facing services when new barriers arose. And when measured against what would have happened without Brexit, UK services exports overall were 4 to 5% lower than they should have been. In other words, Britain's service industries did well despite Brexit, not because of it. We had global class firms in the right sectors at the right time. Without Brexit, they would have done even better. Why does this happen? Because the EU single market provides a level of liberalisation for services that no other trade agreement can match. It includes mutual recognition of professional qualifications, passporting for financial services, free movement of workers to deliver services on site, and harmonised rules and data protection standards. Outside the single market, as the UK now is, UK firms face more restrictive, complex, and costly regulation for financial services. This has meant that London lost seamless access to EU markets, prompting firms to move staff and capital to the continent. For transport services, UK logistics lost cabotage rights, the ability to move goods between EU states freely, undermining their competitiveness. These changes introduced friction where there had been none, raising costs and reducing trade. And this matters not only because services themselves are affected, but the entire UK economy is affected. The Office for Budget Responsibility has consistently forecast that Brexit will reduce UK trade for goods and services by 15% in the long term. That will reduce the size of the UK economy by around 4%, costing roughly £100 billion annually in today's money. And the Centre for Economic Performance has shown that small firms, the lifeblood of innovation and local economies, have been particularly hard hit by the new trade costs. In effect, Brexit imposed a tax on British competitiveness. Nor has global Britain compensated for the loss. New trade deals with Australia, New Zealand, or accession to the CPTPP, while politically symbolic, only offer minor economic gains, estimated at perhaps 0.1 to 0.2% of GDP each. Meanwhile, geographical proximity still matters. The EU is Britain's largest and nearest market, and no distant agreement can substitute for frictionless trade with it. In short, Brexit has made UK services less competitive where it matters most. The verdict is clear. Brexit did not liberate Britain's services sector, it has shackled it. And rather than freeing us to sell to the world, it has imposed new costs and barriers on our most successful industries. If we wish to restore British prosperity, we must face these facts honestly and reconsider our relationship with our largest, richest market, the European Union.